My mother always told me, some secrets are meant to follow you to the grave. I never thought she was talking about her own. It started with a stray German shepherd, scarred, limping, and completely alone, who appeared at my gate one cold morning like he had been waiting for me his entire life. I almost turned him away. Almost. But something in his eyes stopped me. He wasn't lost. He wasn't afraid. He was waiting. And when I followed him, deep into the woods, past a rusted iron gate, to a property that didn't exist on any map, I found something that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. A woman my mother told me died 20 years ago was sitting in a rocking chair on that porch, very much alive. Stay with me, because this story gets darker before it gets lighter. It was a Tuesday, an ordinary, forgettable Tuesday, until it wasn't. I was walking out to check the mail when I saw him standing at the end of my driveway, a large German shepherd, maybe 3 or 4 years old, with a deep scar running from his left ear down to his jaw. His coat was matted, his ribs were visible, but his posture was something else entirely. Straight, alert, deliberate. He wasn't begging, he wasn't growling, he was staring. I grabbed some leftover chicken from the kitchen, walked slowly toward him, and he let me get close enough to check for a collar. There was a tag, old and worn, and a microchip registration number scratched into the back of it. I took a photo and ran it through an online registry that night. The chip was registered in 2006, 19 years ago. The registered owner's name made my stomach drop. Eleanor Voss. I knew that name. I had grown up hearing that name spoken in hushed tones at the dinner table, always followed by a long silence and my mother changing the subject. When I was 12, I finally asked directly. My mother set down her fork, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Eleanor passed away a long time ago, sweetheart. She was a troubled woman. Let her rest." I believed her. For 23 years, I believed her. The next morning, I made the mistake of mentioning the dog to my mother over the phone. There was a pause on the line, the kind of pause that isn't about thinking, it's about controlling panic. "Where did you say you found him?" she asked. "He found me, actually. Just showed up at the gate." Another pause, longer this time. "Get him to a shelter, honey. Strays carry diseases. You don't know where he's been." It wasn't what she said, it was how fast she said it. My mother is a warm woman. She rescues stray cats, donates to animal shelters, keeps bird feeders in every window. She has never in her life told me to turn an animal away. I told her I'd think about it. She told me again, firmer this time, to take him to a shelter that same day. I hung up and sat in the kitchen for a long time, looking at the dog sitting calmly by the back door, watching me with those steady, knowing eyes. I didn't take him to a shelter. On the third morning, something shifted. I opened the back door to let him into the yard, and instead of staying close like he had been doing, he walked to the far edge of the property, past the tree line, and stopped. He looked back at me, took a few more steps, looked back again. I've heard people say animals can sense things we can't. I used to think that was poetic nonsense. That morning, I put on my boots, grabbed my phone, and followed him. We walked for nearly 40 minutes through dense woods, across a narrow creek, and up a long, overgrown gravel path I had never noticed before, and I had lived in that area for 11 years. The path ended at a rusted iron gate set into a low stone wall. Beyond it was a large property, a farmhouse, a barn, an old garden, and the kind of silence that feels intentional. The dog slipped through a gap in the gate and sat down on the other side, watching me. I climbed over, and that's when I saw her, an older woman, maybe late 70s, sitting in a wooden rocking chair on the porch, wrapped in a quilt, watching me walk up the path like she had been expecting me. She looked at the dog, then she looked at me, and quietly, almost gently, she said, "You have your mother's eyes. I always wondered if she'd send someone eventually." Her name was Eleanor Voss,
The same Eleanor Voss my mother told me had died before I was born. She invited me inside, she made tea, and for the next 2 hours she told me a story I was not prepared to hear. Eleanor and my mother had grown up together, more than friends, more than sisters. They had built a life together in their 20s that my parents refused to accept. When pressure from the family reached a breaking point, my mother was given a choice: walk away from Eleanor and return to the family, or lose everything: her inheritance, her relationships, her name. She chose the family. She told everyone Eleanor had died. She built a new life. She had me. But she also quietly purchased this property in Eleanor's name under a trust and made sure Eleanor was never truly alone. For decades, she sent money, sent letters, and never once told a soul. The dog, Bear, had been Eleanor's companion for years. When Bear went missing 2 weeks ago, Eleanor was too frail to search for him herself. She had simply hoped he'd find his way to someone who would follow him home. She never imagined that someone would be me. I drove home that afternoon in complete silence. My mother had lied to me for my entire life, and yet I couldn't bring myself to feel angry, because the more I sat with it, the more I understood something I hadn't before. My mother didn't bury Eleanor. She protected her, the only way she knew. Some secrets aren't acts of betrayal. They're acts of love wrapped in impossible choices. I still don't know how to start that conversation with her, but I know I have to. And I know one thing for certain: that dog did not wander to my gate by accident. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life family mysteries, and drop in the comments, would you have followed the dog? Because honestly, not everyone would have.